When I started coding in Pandas, the int64 and float64 data type always made me question why 64 after int and float. If you have the same doubt in your mind, then don't worry. In this video, we are going to explore what is int64 and float64 data type. So keep watching. So when we create a series with integer values, it gives us d type as int64 in the output. And when we create a series with float values, it gives us float64 as the d type. So 64 bits of memory are used to store each int and float values. So let us understand how data is stored using 64 bits of memory. Now, always remember that computer stores everything in binary, and 1 bit of memory means, what is 1 bit of memory? It means 1 binary digit. So 1 binary digit could be either a 0 or 1. Now, when we are storing a series, let's say we have 4 values in a series: 4, 5, 6 and 7. So how would these numbers be stored in the computer's memory? In binary, 4 means 100, 5 means 101, 6 is 110 and 7 means 111. So if we are storing these numbers in binary bits, let's say the lowest bit, which is 8-bit, then there would be 8 spaces to store this number, right? So the last 3 spaces would be occupied by 100 and the rest of the remaining spaces would be filled up with 0. So that's how 100, that is 4, would be stored in a 8-bit number, like 8-bit memory representation. Now when we are talking about 64 bits, so imagine that 64 spaces are there to store a number, right? 64 spaces, and even 100 would be stored in this space, where all the remaining spaces would be filled up with zeros. Now this happens in case of any number. So never think like if you are storing a big number like 17, let's say, so don't think like it is just taking 2 spaces because it is 17. It's not that. 17 would be again converted to binary. So 17, when we convert to binary, becomes 1, 3 zeros and 1. So here we already get 5 bits, and the rest of the bits are again filled with 0. So this is how integer numbers are stored in a int64 data type. What happens in case of float64? Well, it stores the data a little bit in a different way. In case of float64, instead of storing the number directly, it stores the number in 3 parts, which is the sign, that is whether it's a positive or a negative number, then the size and the decimal part. And one more thing that you should understand and remember is that int64 is not the only version of data type, or let's say the only memory that you can store with. 64 being the default size, we can also make alterations to it. That means there are total 4 integer data types. 4 integer data types. Okay, int 8, int 16, int 32 and int 64. So the difference is just in the number of bits that is used. Very large numbers could be stored in int64 numbers, whereas the range, the maximum number that you can store in a int8 data type would be 128, because when you convert it to binary, it becomes the maximum number that can be stored in this data type. Now what happens in case of float is, float can be stored in two sizes. One is float 32 and the other one is float 64, right? Okay. And you may be thinking that how can we even specify int 8, 16 or 32. So I'm going to show you that the code is, although like the default data type is 64, but we can actually change it. So let's try in a code. Let's say here I am creating a Pandas series and I have created a list called L1. So I am creating a series S1 and then say pd.series, and inside this I pass the list which is L1. Then you need to give a comma and just write D type. After that give equal to, and within quotes you specify the data type that you want it to be. Let's say I'm creating a data type which is int 16. Now each of this data can be stored in a int16 data type. So let's check it out what happens when we run this code. That is absolutely wonderful because the D type is no more int64 but it has been changed to int16. So that's it, and this is how you can also do the same. So try this code, try making datas using int16 or int32, float32, and do let me know in the comments below how your programs worked. If you have any doubts regarding the codes, don't forget to comment below and ask me. So that's it for this video. In the next video we would be discovering about Pandas series attributes. So keep watching.